It is always a relief to come home.
All right.
Now, that might sound like an odd thing to say, but home is where the spirit is.
All right.
And as I get older, I seem to be more and more preoccupied with the spirit that is Africa. Because I like to say that Africa is not just a geographical expression. Africa is not just a people. Africa is not just a state of mind, although it is all those things. Africa is our animating spirit, and it's indeed the animating spirit of the world. Even the continents were born from Africa. Humanity, of course, itself was a child of Africa. What we call civilization is just one of Africa's latest products. And I think that our collective task is the rebuilding of that civilization. Because the civilization can never be the product or the image of one man or woman, no matter how blessed with genius they may be. Civilization can only be the result of the collective spirit of a people. In fact, 4 or 5 years ago, I even had someone said, they knew that I was a physician, they knew that I had spent a lot of time reading and writing about African science, the empirical foundations of African scholarship, African intellect. And they said, but Dr. Finch, you seem to be more and more preoccupied with spiritual matters than I ever knew you to be. And I says, well, yes, you are very perceptive, absolutely, because you see, that is where it begins and ends for all of us. Right. That indeed, to the extent that people of African descent have a major problem, it is indeed a spiritual problem. And until that spiritual problem is taken care of, anything else we do is futile. All right. Now, one of the consequences, you might say, of my first, but by no means last, sojourn here among you in November was that we began to discuss, in some sense, the other dimensions that engulf of the universe. What we call modern physics only recognizes 4 dimensions: length, width, height, and time. But modern physics is now coming up against a brick wall of their own making, because they are finding that to get beyond those 4 dimensions, and by the way, those 4 dimensions are limited by the physical constant we know as light speed, but to get beyond them, there is only one way to go, and that is through consciousness, because the 5th dimension is consciousness or mind. And that with consciousness or mind, you encompass all the other 4 dimensions. And you transcend light speed. And it is therefore possible, really, as African adepts have known for time immemorial and have practiced for time immemorial, to in fact be 2 places at once. To indeed to see eternity in a second and the universe in a grain of sand. Through the medium of the mind, through the medium of the conscious, literally to go to the farthest ends of the universe. And there are those who do that, who encompass the universe, because if the universe is in fact mind, it is accessible to mind. And we find in ancient Kemet that what? The universe comes into being through the agency of the mind of the Creator, who gives the creative word out of that mind, and his name is Jehudi or Thoth. The Dogon say that the universe is a thought in the mind of Amma, the Creator. So we see that even in the profoundest of African philosophies, this idea that the universe is mind is at the very heart of their thinking. So modern physics is a latecomer to an essential truth that African adepts and sages have known from the beginning of humanity itself. And the word is there for anybody to see, read, hear, and understand. So in a sense, modern physics has been chasing its tail. It was always there, always at our fingertips. In the universe we know as the mind, or as Ivan Van Sertima would say, as another way of looking at this issue, is that what happened 10 minutes ago or 10,000 years ago occupies the same space in this domain we call the mind. That means there are African adepts who can get to a place of timelessness, who can indeed move in more than one direction of time. And finally, physics has recognized that time moves in both directions. That time does not move in a single direction, which we call the arrow of time. So it is possible with these innate God-giving abilities that were honed to their highest refinement by the ancient adepts and the traditional adepts, some of whom are still existing today, to transcend time. To, as I like to say, predict the past and remember the future. Because modern physics is also coming finally to the ancient African idea that, in some sense, the future impacts the present, and the present impacts the past. What the past is determined by what is happening right now, actually. So time doesn't move in a single length like this, it moves in what? A circle. Because everything moves in circles. And again, all you have to do is read the thought and philosophy of ancient Kemet and the Dogon to understand this basic truism. These are the kinds of issues and questions that have been occupying my time and my attention. I have, as I have indicated to some, been adopted by two groups of traditional healers in Senegal. Slowly but surely they are vetting me. You know what that means? That they are testing me. They don't just because they adopted me, they just don't give it up, you know. Just because I'm a nice fella, maybe. Just because I have a nice smile, maybe. I am watched, observed, and tested, not over hours, days, or weeks, but over years. And only at such time am I given a little tidbit, and then only just enough to find out the rest of it for myself, because the only true education is self-education. Your teachers and sages and spirit guides are not supposed to hand it to you and force feed it to you like a child getting pablum or milk from a bottle. They are merely supposed to stimulate you so that you can go and find it for yourself, because then what you learn, what you acquire, descends from the brain consciousness to the heart consciousness. And when it is there, it is possible to transform yourself into a God. One of these, and this idea of God consciousness, of God presence that exists in all of us, the divine spark, again, is an ancient idea that is hoary with age in the African frame of things. So this is why, in order for me to embark on new levels of the past, I have to go to Africa to do that. At least I find that's the way it happens for me. Just being on that soil, just being there, just soaking it up. And I don't ask questions. You will never hear me ask a question in Africa. That is not the way you get information. And it is Africa and Africa alone that I have learned what patience really means. Because with patience, time becomes not only your ally, work becomes your servant. You have to know how to wait. It is not a passive waiting. It is an expectant waiting, an active waiting, a positive patience, so that when the window of opportunity opens, you walk right through it and transform your life. Africa taught me that. So there is something that is ennobling, something that is transformational just being on African soil. just absorbing those energies. My adopted mother, Mom Fatou Sek, 93 years old, a healer for 70 years, has performed 15,000 healings without one single failure. When I met her in 1986 in my own house, interestingly enough, not in Senegal, it was the first time I had ever felt the power of someone's aura. As I tell people, careful about coming into Mom Fatou Sek's presence, because there are no secrets from her. You do not even have to open your mouth. You can keep yourself as closed off as you think you are, and she can read you like a book. This is the power and presence of ancient Africa living through her. The problem is she is 93. Her mind is as clear as crystal glass, is as limpid as a pristine pool, is as sharp as a diamond, but her body is frail. We are told that this may be her last calendar year on earth before she is called home. But what is her last will and testament? She has charged me, as her adopted son, with the responsibility of bringing her and all of her priestesses, drummers, ritualists, interpreters for a healing ceremony, 8-day healing ceremony on U.S. soil in St. Helena Island in South Carolina, August 11th through 19th. We all know about African-derived religions here. Santeria, Candomblé, Vodou, Shango Baptist, even Root Doctrine. But this will be the first time in the entire history of the Americas that an authentic, active, current, living African healing ceremony will be brought intact to the United States for the specific purpose of establishing the African spiritual presence here so that Africa's lost children will have direct access to the spiritual powers that will lead them into the new age. It is open to the public. We have a group of Native Americans who are coming to pay homage to Mom Sek to this, because they see the new age a coming. And this will be the first. This will be her fourth visit to the United States, and most likely her last. Open to the public, free of charge. The only thing required is yourself and your spirit. Not only for her, for yourself, but for those yet to come. Penn Center, St. Helena Island, South Carolina, August 11th through 19th. Please see Minister Clemson Brown for details. Please see Mr. Bill Jones, First World Alliance, for details. Yvonne Milliner for details. In African tradition, the most sacred of individuals are the newborn and the elderly. Why? Because they are closest to the ancestors, and by definition are the wisest among us. We cannot make any headway without the guidance and the wisdom and the experience of our elders. We are here because they came before us. I first met Dr. John Henrik Clarke in 1982 in Raleigh, North Carolina. He defined the word erudition for me. You know what erudition means? It just means limitless knowledge. I don't think I had ever then or since met a man who knew so much. But I have met people who have accumulated facts and information. What set Professor John Henrik Clarke apart was the sharp, decisive, penetrating analysis, interpretations, explanations he gave for historical phenomena, unlike anybody I've ever known before or since. He is an institution. He is an icon.